Welcome to another episode of the True Beast podcast, brought to you by X-Dog, the world's greatest fitness and health enhancement harness for dogs. And today, I got a couple new guests. We got Miss Sabrina Bammer, who's also a strong teammate and member over here at X-Dog. And of course, Tyler Miner, certified dog trainer, and as you know, Trevor as always. And today's topic is a topic that I think is loosely talked about, and a lot of people don't discuss it because a lot of people try to cut corners up in this area, but it's genetics versus genetic nourishment. And the loose term saying it's just genetics, focus on genetics. But in my opinion, man, before we get really deep into it, I'd like to hear some of your guys' advice. First, we'll talk to Trevor about it, and then we're going to get the raw perspective from a certified trainer and how he sees his program. And the reason why I feel that's really important is because I think you can seriously tell the difference from a first-class program, whether it's a kennel or breeding program or a training program, based off their feeding and facility, right? So, what's your thought on genetic versus genetic nourishment? You're a breeder, right? You're starting. You have a kennel and you've bred before. Talk to me about it.
Yeah. So one of the things is he also knows I come from the body space. So I'm a human engineer, specific with ergonomics in terms of the body. So like they know about dogs, I know the human body. You got ecto, endo, and mesa. And the thing about people even that juice up, if you've ever been to a bodybuilding show, if you lack genetics, no matter what you put in your body, you just look like a big stone. Or you can look like the Ronnie Coleman's, the Flex Wheelers. So it's important to get optimal health by putting in some of the best nutrients, the best resources possible. Ray Lewis had his blood tested to make sure that when he goes, how do you play 17 years in the league, keep top, defense? He literally had his blood tested to see what his body absorbs and utilizes best, so he can go out there for 17 years straight, be the top 5 defense, and murder people. I mean, literally at later stages, still put the fear of God in folks.
Yeah.
So are nutrients, important? Absolutely, because you can only perform if you have the right resources. Otherwise, you're gonna move like a slug.
So I mean, you've heard that term though, right? It's just genetics. I thought it's all natural. It's just genetics. I mean, you hear it. It's a common phrase that's used loosely. I've always challenged it with this: if it's just genetics, right? Then why are you feeding a certain dog food compared to something else, right? Like you can just why don't you go to the gas station? Like I would put up here, let me put up 10 stacks, right? You go get all the dog food that you can find at your local gas station, right?
Yeah.
It's just genetics, right? Go feed them the dog food there, and then give me the dog. You do it for 30, 60 days, and then let me do it for 30, 60 days, and let me put them on a feeding program. If it's just genetics, do you believe that the dog will be altered based on it's being fed?
Of course. When you put bad food in a dog, you'll see loss of hair, you'll see irritation, you'll see chewing and paws, you'll see degradation in the dog's ability to move. I mean, Zara just switching her to some raw here recently. One thing people fail to realize is we identify animals based on, herbivore, omnivore, and carnivore. Dogs are carnivores, so they need higher sources of protein. And he knows quality sources of protein, and frankly, shit food. If you're a shitty dog, and I don't know what you gotta do with your dog, but I love to keep my dog developing.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that's almost like a sales tactic, right? No, it's just genetics, right? They're trying to sell their genetics. I know back in the days, and this is where I think the bully industry really hit a
plateau.
They hit a plateau, but it was in a way, for example, you go to a show, you see this badass stud, right? And at the end of the day, they take this stud, they breed it to a bunch of bitches, right?
Yeah.
And it's not producing. And the reason why it's not producing is because the genetics that it's been passed off has not been nourished the same way that stud has been. 9 times out of 10, I would almost say that stud was juiced up, right? And so if he produces offspring, and those offspring are not juiced up, the genetic makeup of that's going to be completely different.
Yeah, and even more specific, what he's talking about is line breeding is a real thing. So when you look at the coefficients of, the father, the grandfather, and what it's been bred back to, you cannot reproduce an idea of something unless there's been a concentration of a gene to basically pass on. I have a dog named Baloo who looks just like his dad, Santino. 9 out of 10 males do not throw themselves nowadays because they actually lack genetics.
Now, do you think that for that reason, that influenced the exotic movement because there was such a consistent look, right? Even it's a dwarfism gene, but it's such a consistent look. Do you feel like that could actually influence the exotic movement?
I think people are crazy.
Yeah.
and I think they wanted to see how far they could push a breed. But you know, for instance, other dogs, be it the Maus, be it the Shepherds, whoever, they were created for a purpose. Originally, the Bully was a designer dog, so when you create a dog that has no drive, no this, it's supposed to be just a companion, then they actually like, you know, what do we do with this dog next? Because it can't do shit.
Yeah.
But the premise of the dog is the Staffordshire Bull Terrier along with a pit bull. That's what Dave Wilson used to build Razor's Edge. Those two dogs are working dogs that can do stuff, but they've gotten away from that. So when you take a dog to a place of nowhere, he said, what can we do next? Let's see if we can make it a retard.
Yeah.
No disrespect. I'm just saying, if you've ever seen an exotic dog, they literally cannot walk. They've had trouble breathing. They live upwards of 5 years. But the concentration of genes are there.
Yeah.
Because when you mixing a Frenchie with a bull, you get that bull.
Yeah.
And it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing.
Yeah, and speaking of Maus and stuff, you know, I mean, we're not just talking about genetic nourishment when it comes to, for example, just kennels and breeding programs, but also training programs. You know, Tyler, you're a trainer. Is feeding important to you? Like, how much has it influenced you with your dogs and with your clients?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's super important because we'll get dogs that come into our personal house or when we had a facility where it was hard for them to eat because they were used to either eating once a day, twice a day, or the worst, free feeding.
Yeah.
So the dog had no food motivation, and that made training extremely difficult, even though we go at it at a balanced approach. Feeding is everything. Rewards are everything for the dogs. The way we feed our dogs specifically, because I have 5 personal dogs. Shout out to Sabrina. There's Chanel, our Doberman. We have Felix, he's an Australian cattle dog mix. You know, we have our 2 Aussies, Percy and Kobe. And then we have Gracie, our XL bully, or just our bully.
Yeah.
And we got a lot going on with all of our dogs, and they have all come from different backgrounds. I had a little bit of knowledge with nutrition when it came to my personal dog, Kobe, one of the Aussies. And then Morgan is my girlfriend. She was getting into it with her dogs as well. And that's how we found Next Dog.
Yeah.
To be honest, with Felix, he was obese.
Mm-hmm.
He was obese. He was like
Yeah.
20, 25 pounds
Which,
overweight.
when I seen him, what you consider obese, it was almost could be pet weight.
Yeah, it was. It
Yeah.
was pet weight. It was fluffy. It was funny
Yeah.
that he would wobble when he would walk.
Yeah.
It was silly when he would get out of breath, just going 10 feet down
Yeah.
the sidewalk, and that wasn't funny to us. But we weren't nutritionists right out the gate. I wasn't a trainer right out the gate, so we didn't know better. But now, moving forward with everything, we have a better understanding of what we want to feed our dogs, and how we want to work with them.
I mean, would it be fair that the majority of your clients are like pet owners?
Yes.
And so, you see it all the time. Why do you think they're influenced, or why their dogs tend to be pet weight or tend to be overweight?
For that reason I said earlier, it's funny, it's silly, it looks cute on the dogs, but in reality, it's not. It's awful for the dogs. As you know, Trevor, nobody wants to see an obese bear, nobody wants to see a fat animal, nobody wants to see, a lard or a Labrador, right? But that's the common thing with folks, and I think it's the mainstream that gets pushed to people.
Hey Sabrina, can you pull that toy out of his cage? It's driving me crazy. I got my dog here, and I don't know, he decided to put something in it.
Yeah, fit over there.
So you brought up free feeding, and that's another thing. I think free feeding is a huge mistake when it comes to a lot of things, right? When it comes to the health of the dog plus the ability to train your dog, right? And with that being said, like for example, the bully community wants to bulk up their dog. So obviously the genetics, when you're getting into the game and you're kennel, obviously genetics are important. I don't ever want to discredit genetics, right? But there's a way to bulk your dog the clean way, and there's a way to bulk your dog what I consider dirty, right? Like for example, you're on the human side, there's a way to dirty bulk where you can just eat whatever you want, right? Eat like shit.
And that only works for people who are ectomorphs. Those are the kind of people who can sweat in their sleep because they're burning so many calories.
Yeah.
When you're a Mesa, Adrian Peterson, for those who like football, then you can basically, you have to do it clean because you at that line of endo, and then you'll be fat. So,
yeah. And so, it's a common thing in the meal community, right? Like to dirty bulk. And a way to dirty bulk is one, free feeding. You constantly have food out there. Or you grab that product that's a jug of oil, right? With a bunch of different other ingredients in it. And the thing is, the main ingredient is adding healthy fats, right?
Yeah.
But, so the dirty thing is to just pour whatever that oil is on the food, right?
Dyeing is one of those things. Some old joker told me use oodles milk or was it oodles oil?
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Well, the thing is, if you ever go into a bully show and you've seen those dogs where the coat, it looks like they have an oil strip on the back and a bunch of different dots, darker spots, right? That's a big indication that there's a massive inflammation problem in their stomach, right?
And that's not ticking people. That is a problem.
Yeah, and they tend to, that's a way to bulk up the dog, but the dogs are usually overweight. It's not a true way to build muscle density. If you were to discuss to people like on the human side, it probably takes a long time to do it right. It's pretty hard to bulk up in a clean way, right?
It is very difficult because when the body is utilizing what it needs, put it like this, if you ate a bunch of bad food, it's funny, you can go and eat maybe 3 or 4 sandwiches from McDonald's breakfast wise. But then if you eat a bowl of oatmeal, half a cup of oatmeal with 2 eggs, you're like full as hell. Why? Because the body responds to something when it's a complete source of nutrients. So the body's like, oh man, that's almost too much. And we're talking a cup of oatmeal.
Yeah.
Everything you need is in that cup of oatmeal. Eggs have all 22 amino acids that you need to improve their biological value is 100. When you understand what it means to eat clean, that's where you can get to eat 6 times a day, every 3 or 4 hours. The body processes things, carbs, 1 hour, protein, 2 to 3 hours, fat, 7 to 3 to 4 to 5 hours. So you get, if every meat has a fat with it, that's 3 hours. With the carb, that's 4 hours. So every 4 hours to 3 hours you're eating. Why? Because the body's in constant just metabolizing things, utilizing resources, building, growing, developing.
Yeah, and so one way you can cleanly bulk up your dog, right, is like, for example, a lot of trainers use hot dogs, right? If you think about hot dogs, they're just processing. Did you ever use hot dogs, Amanda?
Not really.
No. So it's already processed. It's basically regurgitated food that's processed and gelatinized, and right? And so the dog's able to eat the process, but with dog sports, your dogs are constantly fasting, correct? And so, yeah.
Not
and so,
with us, though.
well, one way, for example, I talked about the oil in the jugs, right?
Yeah.
Why not just go get straight fat from the animal source like lard or beef tallow or chicken fat or duck fat? It's a cleaner way to do it, and you can do it that way. Or if you want to add ancient grains like oatmeal, chia seed, flaxseed, you can do it that way. Or, for example, when we talk about hot dogs being processed, right? There's a difference between biological value and being able to absorb that certain source. So, for example, ground beef is going to be easier to digest than a slab of brisket that you cut into slices. It's going to take a longer time to break down that slab of brisket, right? And then you got a nice fat cap. And so, if you're looking to clean bulk your dog, don't give them ground. Give them protein sources that have not been ground yet.
But I think one of the other things people need to be mindful of is when we talked about, you guys talked about drivers and having a dog that is active. So basically, even on the fitness side of things, we basically have to get a good idea of what your dog can do. And the way to do that is to put it to work. So a lot of people aren't walking their dogs. We know that, right? That's why you need an X-dog test. A lot of people aren't putting their dogs in competitions or seeing how far their dog can go. So mind you, some of your dogs aren't even hungry because they're not doing shit.
Well,
my dogs, they eat. As a matter of fact, Zora won't eat if she doesn't do any work. She's like, I'm good. But when she works, I can feed her in the morning, at night, and another time because we've been outside probably 4 or 5 hours a day and water, pulling weight with the vest on, do it as much as possible.
Yeah.
So part of getting to a bulking stage is to understand, you basically have to strip your way, work backwards.
Well,
How many calories are we burning? What are we actually doing? How much food does my dog need?
and I think that's a mistake, especially in the pet common world, right? Like you look at a bag of dog food and they have a specific amount, but they don't go, this is a specific amount for the weight of the dog and the breed. I don't even go to the deepest breed, right? Just the weight of the dog, right? There are companies out there that do breed specific dog foods.
In their mind.
Yeah, in their mind. And if you
In the
actually,
marketing.
yeah, it is in the marketing, because you know what I used to do before I got, I guess, more knowledge in nutrition is if you actually go look at a small breed formula compared to a large breed formula, the calories are much higher in a small breed formula than they are in a large breed. You know what I mean? Because
it's like the ectos. They need more resources because they're constantly burning fat, or just calories in general.
Yeah, and so I think organ meat's a big deal. Like, I mean, what do you use for your training treats?
So we use the beef liver treats from Max Dog. We use the Green Buffalo Triumph as well. And then really whatever is motivating for the dog. Now, things I don't use are hot dogs.
Yeah.
They're so processed, well, I'm gonna give my dog 87 cents worth of hot dogs.
Yeah.
I would rather deprive and just feed the dog its straight kibble, whatever that kibble might be.
Mm-hmm.
We don't use cheese because it's too high in dairy and that can sometimes upset the dog's stomachs. So what we'll normally do is, use beef liver. The one thing I will go down to is Bill Jack. For trainers out there who know what that is.
Yeah.
It's basically Bill Crack for dogs.
Yeah.
And dogs go berserk for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think they go crazy over it though?
It's pretty fatty. It's pretty high in calorie.
Yeah.
It's real stinky. It's real mushy. It's soft. And it's so appealing. It's like brown Play-Doh for a dog.
What do you use, Sabrina?
I typically use our beef fat bombs. They're
Yeah.
like the best size and the most motivating I found for my dogs. And then I will sometimes use Bill Jack, like Tyler was saying, like if I need to mold it to a bigger size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not too much of it, because then again, I want the dog to work for its kibble as well.
Yeah.
Now, if a dog comes in and I ask the owner, hey, what food do you feed your dog? And they're like, oh, you can stop at the gas station. Oh, you can stop at Dollar General. We're gonna have a talk.
Yeah.
Because that's not good for your dog.
Well, I think a lot of people too make the mistake they'll feed canned food, right? And they don't understand that canned food is just empty calories, right? It's basically, or worse, it's like water. It's like bread and water, right? And it sends that it makes your dog full. It sends indicators that your dog's stomach is full, but the indication is that it's full of empty calories, right? I really believe in the next 5 years, organ meat is going to be a big influential movement, not just on the dog side, but on the human side. It's starting to become more trendy because of the nutritional value. I don't know, we had talked off air a few seconds ago. There's a pod of orcas, right, that specifically go out and they hunt great whites and they just murder them just for their liver and leave the rest of the body parts, right? And then when you think about predators, the first thing they do is when they make a kill, what do they eat? Organs. But we've always been taught that meat, and they don't really try to sell us on the organs because there's not enough profit in
We're the
there.
only people eating steaks and a rack of lamb and that goat leg.
I love rack of lamb.
Everybody else is, getting the stuff that they need out of, said dog or said animal, said deer, whatever.
Yeah, so you got to think about it. How big is an orca, right? Like it's massive, and it's probably burning a ton of energy. And if it's just going out and murking great whites just for its liver, that lets you know how much nutritional value is in liver, And if you guys are introducing liver, sometimes like my dog can never eat just raw liver. I don't know if your dogs eat.
You start early, they will, but if you like ours, that's the last thing she wants.
Yeah, I always have to mix it with the burger and stuff, but with the freeze dried, I have no problem. Like they murder the freeze dried. But other than that, what we got as far as current affairs?
Alright, so the most recent thing that I've noticed is the crate challenge. So you actually told me about it. I literally thought it was dog crates. So I was like, that's probably expensive to get that many references. Stan was like, no, milk crates. I was like, oh, okay. So I mean, I haven't seen a video where someone's done it successfully. Have you?
One person.
Yeah. Blueface did it the other day.
Yeah. I just watched that today.
I've just been seeing them falling, and all I gotta say is, if my next man doesn't fall for me the way that these people are falling off these crates, I don't even want them.
Bradley Martin.
Yeah, from Zoo Culture.
Yeah, he did some curls at the top.
25-pound dumbbells.
He ate some food, stayed there, hung out, and then walked back down. It's like, you guys have no center of gravity. Like in the fitness world, I'm like, that stuff has got to be easy because it's like you guys have no center of gravity, no hip strength, etc. But when you see guys like him, like, we know it's not difficult.
All right, let me ask you this. How come on the way up is a lot easier than the way down for most people?
Their center of gravity's on.
Yeah.
True story, I met a 79-year-old guy who stood on one of those balls. It's not a Bosa ball.
Medicine ball?
No, it's a workout ball, like the bouncy one. He stood on there with his 2 feet. And he said, you know one thing, you young folks don't practice the center of gravity. And I remember after that day, I was like, now I can't do it to be good. I'm not telling you because I can do it. I'm telling you that I have a good center of gravity, but his was superb. And it's the key to anything like a great challenge. But he walking downstairs stuff.
Yeah, I mean, building those stabilized muscles around your joints, ligaments, and tendons is an extra insurance of protection, And it's kind of crazy, man. A lot of you guys do like a lot of dog training. You're about to get a protection sport, right?
Yeah, so I just jumped into that. It's a new path that I'm trying to get down. So
what influenced it?
It's been there since day one when I went through my professional dog training school that I attended to, Starmark Animal Behavior Center, and they were doing stuff out in the field, and it was PSA, so the Protection Sports Association. And I saw it and I was like, wow, that's incredible. I never knew a dog was capable of doing something like that.
Yeah.
And 5 years later now I have an opportunity after I've grown as a business owner to go down a new path for my business, myself personally, and now I'm trying to go in October to certify as a decoy. And I've been reaching out to different clubs and going to clubs, getting in the suit, taking bites from dogs, learning how to be safe for not only the handler, but most importantly for the dog, and not hurt the dog, not follow the dog, and things like that. And man, I found something out recently. My mobility is trash.
Is it?
My mobility is trash. My hip flexors, everything, it's trash. I fall off those crates.
However, do you think you can do it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I literally, Jamarcus has seen me do some crazy stuff. I'm
Catch
talking about-
dogs or a car?
No,
The
car.
car.
The leg jumping, I mean, those are the things that I do easy. I've always had that center of gravity, even like single leg hops, super high crazy stuff. That stuff's not
Stay and get some crates.
Just do it off Xbox property. Do it out there the road. I don't care what y'all do,
Let's
man.
sign the waiver.
That's what got me into it, and I'm still trying to learn why I'm truly there. I'm trying
Yeah.
to find the passion of, okay, what's the end goal to this? Where can I be in 2 years, 5 years, 7 years? What can this bring? What value can this bring? to
How
me?
dangerous is decoying?
Decoy can be pretty dangerous. It really can.
Yeah.
Because most importantly, you can really injure a dog. You can
Yeah.
you could kill a dog.
Yeah.
You could jam them so hard that
Break a
force. You can break teeth. If a dog hits you the wrong way, or you might present the wrong way. If a dog is traveling almost 25 miles an hour and you're a brick wall, what happens when the dog's head hits you and it goes down to the spine, to the tail?
Well, that's what's really influenced my next invention, which is the big collar.
Oh
Yeah. Yeah, but you do protection sports, Sabrina. You've got issues. Like, okay, so we'll go around the table.
Yeah.
How much shit do you guys get from people on the internet about doing protection sport? From people who are like, I guess, dog moms and dog dads, and then you with cropping ears, and you with cropping ears.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start?
Okay, so I have Dobies and Mals, right? And obviously with the Doberman, the ears cropped. So some people don't even know that Doberman's ears are cropped when they're standing up like that. Like some people naturally think a Doberman's like that.
Really?
And those that don't, when you're walking them on the street, if they're not scared of it, they'll be like, oh, did mommy clip your ears? I'm like, no, I didn't personally do it. I took them to a professional vet to get it done.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then like obviously there's a posting process. Most people don't know, how grueling that can be depending on how long the crop is. So yeah, there's just like a lot of educating that I think is lacking on like the average dog owner, unless you're really in that specific breed. Like a lot of people just don't know. And then as for hate for it, I no longer get as much hate. I think like my following is now like into the same kind of things that I'm into.
Yeah.
So I don't really get, I guess my kind of get pushed to a lot of fur moms anymore. So I don't really hear a lot of that.
What about doing the protection sports stuff?
Yeah, even with that, a lot of people, even when I like on my TikTok, which is newer, I just get people like more interested and amazed by it.
Yeah, I think social media is really helping that come along a lot better because the majority of the badass trainers do protection sport. Have you got any kickback from that?
No, fortunately, I have not.
You think it's because you're a dog? Yeah, no, because of your dog, the breed, the border collie,
Yeah, well, he's an Aussie.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
So I don't actually have a protection dog. I don't have
Yeah.
a Mal, I don't have a German Shepherd, Dutch
Yeah.
Shepherd. But I am on the path for that, and I actually get a puppy in October. I get a
Yeah.
Mal puppy from RJR. I have not gotten any negative feedback from people on both sides, pet
Good.
obedience and for the protection sport side of it. But I mean, who cares?
Yeah.
You're just gonna keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I can't
most
speak for Tyler, but one of my friends that Risa, she was a pet trainer and she goes to Quiz Club religiously, which is also a PSA club, and she said that her pet clients actually respect her more for knowing that she has those other capabilities and other kind of dogs. Because I have heard some people say, like they don't want to put any protection content out there because they're worried it will scare off the pet owners.
Yeah.
But I found when I'm speaking to people, it's the opposite. Yeah.
Yeah.
opposite.
And vice versa. I mean, I got into it and, started doing some protection work on receiving my girl could. And she's pretty good because she's a feisty bitch. And, the first thing you get is, well, I hope she's good around kids. I said, no, she don't like kids. I'm going to play into the egg. I want you to stay the fuck away from my dog. So, and then the other thing is, mind you, she's I leave her with my kennel partners and many other people for that matter. She's fine, but I'm not about to go through the process of teaching people that she's not gonna fuck you up unless I press the button. And even then, when people fail to realize the dog has discernment, more discernment than the average effing human. Therefore, even if you say your protection word, it's gonna assess the situation and then react accordingly. If nobody's like threatening, they're not just gonna lose it just because somebody's like eat and you sit down at the dinner table eat.
Well, what do you think about this? The term, natural protector. My dog's a natural protector.
No, it's not. Can't be
Isn't that such a big false statement?
Personally, this is my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you can scare someone's dog off.
Yeah.
Especially if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you know how to look at that dog, evaluate that dog, and go, no, you're not about it. Now, there are specific dogs that I do think will.
Well, I think that's why PSA is so.
Tear your ass up.
No, not even that.
Oh.
Dobies, German Shepherds, Malinois, even the top line breeds that you think are going to.
Reactive.
It might be the pug that's coming at you. It might be the corgi that's coming at you.
Oh my goodness.
It was, like I have a bunch of trainer friends, but they used to tell me, I think that's why PSA is so important, because it's like, they said, most older police training dogs, if you just stood there and put your hand behind the back and you didn't present your arm, the dog would just sit there. Like, it ain't gonna bite you because it's been trained to attack the arm, And so if you just walk forward and put your hand behind your back, the dog's gonna be waiting for you to present the arm. And with PSA, the motherfuckers will bite you anywhere.
Yeah, well, it just depends on the specific handler's training program they have for their individual dog. Because some there's different organizations and different training organizations of PSA, different bite sports, IGP, things like this, where the dog is taught for the left arm, the right arm, the back of the legs, the back. Then there's other things where people teach, I just want my dog to bite you wherever. Ass, balls, face, fingers, whatever. So it just comes down to the handler and the individual dog.
Yeah. Well, that was a great episode, y'all, man. I appreciate y'all coming in, Tyler. Thank you again for taking the time to come in. And of course, Sabrina's going to be on the podcast when she ain't on vacation in Vegas every other weekend. But other than that, man, I want to say thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully you found some value. If you did find some value, man, please subscribe and save to our channel. If you go to our podcast, please, man, give us a solid review. And if you don't like it, don't show us no love, But if you do,
fast forward.
Yeah.
Fast forward. If you don't like it, fast forward. Find something you do enjoy. Move on.
But as always, man, we're going after canine obesity one dog at a time, and we appreciate you being part of our team and mission. And as always, Team X Dog Strong.